Children or communities to draw on those teachings. And so I'm just going to read here. He came together, and this is 2 raven heads, and you can see the hands at the bottom that come together, and he called this one protection. And for his people, the raven is very significant and is known as a protector. He says under the hands and arms wrapped around the raven, symbolizing children, and it's to portray the protection that will be provided by this organization, but we want to share it with you. Chose ravens to represent the children because in Salish mythology, ravens are symbols of change in life and transformation. And I think that's the essence of what we want to do, is transform the kind of practices, policies, and laws that we need for our children. Think of a metaphor that represents for you how we care for children, but also think about something that helps us to bring it into action. How are we going to bring this into action? What's going to work for us? What do we need to do? I don't really want to focus on what the barriers are or what the challenges are, but when we think of the raven and the protection, that's what we're doing right now. And we're going to see, for example, in the classrooms and when we go into community, that the knowledge that is there, the indigenous knowledge that is there, the ceremony, the prayer that we have, this matters. This is a part of our professional and academic life. So how do we make it into action? So now I'll pass it on to each table to think about a metaphor or a logo that will represent caring for our children and how we bring it into action.
Our discussion was about listening and watching, observing.
We did ours on back in the day, people fishing with a dip net and drying, and an old woman sewing a tiny little basket and telling a story to her grandkids.
And on the edges, this is where people would sleep and keep their tools and things that are important.
What we said is that the families are the expert of their own lives. We have to come down from up here and join the families in Sunset and kind of start where they are.
I actually drew little people while I was sitting there to represent that it's the community that uplifts all these things and keeps them alive. It's the community's responsibility. Underneath that, we have a pipe with the eagle feathers as well, relating back to tradition and back to ceremony to keep the community strong enough to hold basically the way of life that's represented in the turtle.
The stuff around the wall is the great spirits. This is the sun. The great spirits are turning the wolf into a human being, God killer.
When our languages were pure and strong and useful, everything was taught in a very loving fashion. When this plan was passed on like this to the people, the old people would tell why they did that. And it was explained to the young people why they did that and why they put the young people first. When our parents and grandparents were taken to the residential school, our ways were taken away, and they were taught the English language in a very harsh, ordering way. They were never allowed to ask why they could do this. They weren't asked why they had to go to bed at 8 o'clock at night when the sun was still. They couldn't ask why they had to go to school every day. Cree language, as I'm a Cree, I can only speak of a Cree. Okay? It's a very soft, loving, caring, and emotional. In general, life, the language itself. My grandfather taught me the Indian way. And there was never any order in that Indian way. There was protocols. Sometimes we get mixed up with protocols and order. Protocols are set. Step 1, step 2, step 3. You follow these in order to accomplish what you're accomplishing. Those are some of the things that we need, that we have to do to raise a healthy community, to be a part of that. And this is one of the things that I have found that's a blessing to me, to be taught this. And who taught me was my little grandchildren, 2 little girls. Okay? They asked me, I taught them, I teach them every year how to hunt. 2 little girls. One is 3, she already shot 22. Just about shot my spare tire. And I took her out in the last fall hunting, and I gave her a buck call, and I showed her how to call bucks. We went out and we seen some does. And she says, Grandpa, shoot it. I said, no, those are does, we can't shoot them. Why, Grandpa? Why can't we shoot them? I had to answer that. It was hard to answer that. Well, why do we just have to shoot bucks? There's no bucks. And I had to tell her, well, we have to call them in. It's not early and it's not late enough to call them, but we'll call them in. And we did. We finally called one in. And it was funny because my other, what was she, 2 years old, Peanut?
Yep.
Yeah. She couldn't handle the buck call, eh? And she had one of those little monster whistles that sounded like sort of like a frog. She was sitting in the back of the truck blowing it, and this little 2-point buck come out. Here we were using buck calls. We were at $24.95 at Walmart. I picked this up at the dollar store and it worked. And we did. We got the deer, eh? And the question she asked, I've done this all my life. I know how to shoot a deer, I know how to skin it, and I know how to put everything away, eh? And my little granddaughter kept asking me, why do I have to do it that way? And you know, it was so hard to explain it in words. And that's when I decided to start teaching myself how to explain the way I walk.